Greetings, hola. This is I'm Jesus Contreras, and this is Música con Jesus. I'm gonna probably do this in English and Spanish. So, this is the first video I'm gonna make, and this is the first video of a series of music I'm making on what music actually is. And what I'm about to present might sound simple or even simplistic, but what I've come to find about music is not what you really think it is, okay? I know I probably sound like I have had a little bit too much coffee, but there's a reason for all this, okay? And I needed to, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start with these definitions that are gonna smash a lot of assumptions that you've always held as being true, and this is gonna be the case. So here's my first definition, okay? Music. It's just an organization of sound. Here's my second one. Musician. Someone who organizes sound. So what's the big deal? Okay, so you think, oh, well, what's the big deal? It's like, these are, it's kind of like saying the sky is blue, well, kind of. But now here's why I'm doing this, okay? Because here's for the first thing, and here's what's the big deal about this. So I'm doing this because all of a sudden the how is no longer important as to why, where, and with whom music is being created, or in this case, organized. Anything we really do to organize is merely based on technology and people. That's it. That's all it has ever been. It doesn't matter whether the music is put together with cans, synths, drums, orchestral instruments, guitars, ouds, or even played back, which I'm going to address that, okay? There's nothing, and also then two, there's nothing in how one style of music is put together that makes it more important than another style of music. That was the other, and this is the reason why this is important about this organization of sound, is because what I found out is that it doesn't matter, like, whether you throw the dice or, you scribble some notes on a piece of paper, and you have this giant score, you grab this, you have this enormous orchestra playing. And the reason I'm saying this is because I realize that it's like, while impressive as it looks and everything, there's really nothing in there in that organization. You're just organizing blocks of sound, and you're organizing people to do this. And I realized that this is why I said this definition. When I started coming to this definition, I was like, well, wait a minute, that's exactly it. So it's important to realize, and I know this is like, I'm keeping this a little bit longer or shorter, but that it doesn't matter how you sort of put it together, because it comes back to the first thing I was saying a little bit. I was saying, well, it's that it's more important as to with whom and with where and why. In other words, because what I've been finding about this is, this theory about at least these two things, is that it gave me the realization that it allowed people to focus more on, with whom you're doing the music with why you're doing it, with your friends, your family, your community, society, culture. In other words, that it's a reflection of that. It's like how you put it together really is based on what necessity, and I'm going to go more into details a little bit, but there's, like, say for example, that, like, if a lot of times, you'll see people is like, well, they spend like an enormous amount of time on practicing the piano or guitar or something, and now, like, the new trend that has been, I've seen, is like people, in terms of people who are collecting instruments, like electric guitars or acoustic guitars, or they put so much emphasis, like, well, it was made in a certain year, or that it was used by this certain person, but there's nothing in that makes it really the mojo. It's just that was what they had available at the time, the technology. That's all it was. But there again, it's like the technology has always changed. So then here's the other part about this theory, is that it really does come back down to, like, to take away the how, because there's really isn't anything in the how. I mean, whether like I said, is whether it's like they end up being, it's like, because the idea of, like, what it was like a lot of these assumptions about, that must be an importance the way this music was stacked, was like, well, that came from, like, 19th century theorists. They were trying to explain why Beethoven's music was so important and others, but they were seeing these things and like describing, and in reality, they were just points of interest. It's not to say that the music of Beethoven isn't compelling. That you listen to it, it's compelling music and statements. But there's been a lot of other musicians that have made or music that has had a compelling statement or even inspired an entire movement of society to do things. The music of Bob Dylan and Joan Baez and Pete Seeger, they inspired movements. The music of Robert Johnson, they also inspired movements, and that's one of the things that I found that was interesting. It's like, Robert Johnson, even his original intention when he wrote his music, he was just, he was writing his songs telling a story about what was happening around him, and this was the only instruments now, but now they have taken this almost mythical, this original instrument, this sound, and and people will focus on it. And this theory still allows for this. It still allows for that. There is value in pursuing how they put it together. There's still value in how it was, to recreate it so that preserving the history. Even though recording, there's still some value of that when you do play it, but is not the thing that makes it important. The thing is that what made it important is that it was a reflection of the society or the group of people at the time. Even when it originally took on another notion, because I'll even tell you about a story about Sexto Rodriguez, which he didn't even know his music had inspired an entire movement of people in another continent, and he didn't even know this was happening. It was like, can you imagine to wake up someday and says, people are calling you and say, hey man, that you kind of helped end apartheid. What do you mean? Your music inspired a whole bunch of people to end apartheid. And it's like, seriously? De veras? Anyways, I'll end it. And I kind of said too something about it. Even am I a musician if I press play? But I'll stay tuned for that next segment.